Hello, and welcome back into the My Wheelhouse Basketball podcast on the We Got Balls podcast network. I am your host, Seamus McNamara. Today, March 6th, March Madness. I'm joined by dear friends and common co-hosts, Steve Trudeau and Albidis Natola. Gentlemen, how are we?
Fantastic.
Shay, I hate to report big disappointment over in the Italian Soccer League. Tough loss for Napoli.
I wasn't watching attentively. I was watching soccer today.
There we go. We're going to be on the
Balls
World Cup preview breakdown.
I want every episode to start with a Serie A or some sort of World Cup snippet from you. I love it.
We got him.
You could make up complete nothingness that wasn't real, and I would be like, "Wow, it's interesting that happened." That's happy for those players. All right, we're deep into the NBA season. The home stretch is here. Only how many games do most teams have left? 15. So
65.
We're getting down to it. Teams are hoping to round into shape for playoff form. We got some people returning from injury, but today, as we round down and have a real decent sample size of evidence from this year, we really wanted to focus on some season awards where we could see people finishing out, specifically what the odds and betting sites are placing favorites and some underdog, where we could find some value, all that hoopla. So it should be an exciting podcast. I'm not a huge betting dude, but hopefully we could give some advice for listeners to make a couple greenbacks. Yes, absolutely. Before we jump into those odds, let's touch on a very exciting week since we last spoke.
Let's check out what happened around the league this week. It's time for my Wheelhouse Rapid Recap.
Markelle Fultz returns looking solid in limited minutes for 3 games for the Orlando Magic. Ja explodes for 46. Ja explodes for 52. Ja becomes father of the Pirtle web game. Ja completes a bonkers full-court alley-oop buzzer beater at the half. Ja's 38 points, not enough to counter the face punch from the Boston Celtics. Kevin Durant returns from injury and a loss to the Heat. Mavs and Luka are thriving as Luka averages near Russell Westbrook MVP numbers since the calendar has turned. Cade versus Scottie, a classic. Darius Garland gets a career-high 19 assists. The Lakers crap their shorts against Reggie Jackson's Clippers. They got booed at home. T-Wolves players run into a mop-up crew on a transition opportunity. Zion Williamson gets clearance to return to basketball activities as the Pelicans surge, including a 34-point thwomping of the healthy Jazz. Tar Heels stamp out the Duke in Coach K's final home game. Maxey signs as Harden sits. The Heat smolder the Sixers. Philly is now 4-1 in the Harden era. The Kings' recent loss, locks in a 16th straight losing season. Yikes. LeBron drops 56, carrying the hapless Lakers past a bumbling Golden State. And earlier today, Tatum and the Boston Celtics pull off a statement victory over the Brooklyn Nets. Tatum was a smooth criminal with 54. Durant reached 25,000 points in the loss. An exciting week. What stood out, Biddies?
I don't even think you got to him in the rundown because so much happened, and I want to make sure that gets mentioned. It was a long week, but I believe that it was this week that the Mavs had a big comeback against the Warriors, and then the following game for them, the Lakers were attempting to come back on the Mavs. Luka had a putback dunk. Luka wanted LeBron guarding him in crunch time. So I thought that was awesome. And also, Cat dropped 39 on the Warriors. Things aren't looking too good out there in the Bay.
No, the Warriors are floundering as of late. Steve, what stood out from this past week of hoops?
I don't have anything for the past week of hoops, but for today, I did a lot of research and I was looking at league leaders, and I have some interesting league leaders. It's like weird stats that people are leading the league in.
Give me some trivia.
Minutes per game.
Van Vliet,
you are correct. Turnovers, laughable, predictable. Who's leading turnovers?
Westbrook.
Assuming Westbrook, but I don't know.
Westbrook. All right, now we're getting real weird. Personal fouls. Who has fouled the most people in the league this year?
Mitchell Robinson.
Grant Williams.
Jayshawn Tate.
Sure, absolutely.
Usage rate. This one should be easy-ish.
Jokic.
You said Ja
LeBron.
enough already, and it's
LeBron.
not either three players. Luka Doncic,
Sure.
leading the league,
Yeah.
like 36%, which means he
It's
is
big.
involved with scoring on 36% of the plays. And then you'll love this one as Celtics fans. I'll just tell you, offensive rating leading the league. Time Lord Rob Williams, defensive rating
Obvious.
leading the league. Rob Williams,
Robert
Time
Williams,
Lord.
yes.
He is leading the league in both offensive and defensive rating. Put the man in the Hall of Fame right now.
For a while now. He's been doing that since the calendar turned. The advanced statistics have always heralded him as like the next coming of awesome advanced stat player, and it stands out on the court too.
And speaking of, a previous incarnation of Rob Williams, this week, 60th anniversary of Wilt Chamberlain dropping 100.
Yeah, that's a good shout out. Good shout out there.
I think not.
So let's jump into some odds and some bets. Before we get to the awards, do we want to shake out standings outlook and stuff like that? Biddies, what do you got at the top of your list to go over?
I was going to come in with the MVP race before moving into the conferences.
So let's do it.
I think we should properly open the door because, right, we're going into all the betting odds. We're making our viewers some money because we know basketball. We're going to teach them how to bet. So let's open the door for this right, shall we, folks?
Money.
All right, Shay, get us started.
Okay, so I don't have the players' odds. Biddies, what are the top three right now in MVP odds?
Okay, leading the pack as favorite at -120. So for the rookies out there, -120 means that you have to bet $120 to win 100. Joel Embiid is the favorite. Second is Nikola Jokic. That's +260. Again, for the rookies, you bet 100, you win $260. And then in third, we've got Giannis at +600 or 6-1.
Okay, so I think that those are going to be the top three that finish at the end of the year. And I think you just take, if you're trying to grab some cash, I think you just take the guy with the worst odds, just because I think it's a pretty balanced case here. Steve's shaking his head and disagrees. I think the line between these three people in the top tier for the MVP race is very, very thin. So just looking at it objectively, if I think the difference between these guys, I mean, I change who I think the MVP should be depending on which game of these top-notch players I watch most recently. Right now, I have Jokic as my MVP, but I could watch a Bucks game and move Giannis up there, and I can watch Embiid dominate and move him up there. One thing I will say is I do think that Harden's performances continuing for the Sixers is slightly going to lower Embiid's amount of votes. Not that Harden is going to be stealing votes, because I don't think he'll end up in the top 10, but just it'll probably pull away some attention from him. And I would put money on.
Something else with the Embiid thing is that he is nearing his career high of games played. It's only 64. And with Harden, there's a greater luxury to sit Embiid, where there's certainly no luxury over in Denver. And I think Giannis is still just a better equipped player to play.
So out of the two other guys, Jokic and Giannis, who has longer odds?
Giannis.
Yeah, already. Giannis. I would pick Giannis. I would put money on Giannis. What do you think, Steve?
Absolutely. I'm just disgusted with this conversation. There's only one MVP.
Just disgusted. It's
Nikola Jokic. He is phenomenal. And I got some numbers to back this up. Are you familiar with the advanced stat win shares?
Yes.
He leads the league in win shares, which means he has contributed the estimated most number of wins towards his individual team. He leads the league in win shares per 48 minutes. He leads the league in box plus minus. All these numbers suggest that he is the foundation for which the Nuggets roll. Without Jokic this year, the Nuggets are 2-5. With him in totality, they're 37-26. They're about the same record as the aforementioned 76ers and Bucks. And, if you look at the supporting cast for all three teams, the Denver Nuggets and Jokic have by far the emptiest shelves of all three teams. So to me, this guy is just carrying his team night in and night out, and they are firmly in the playoff race without two of their three best players playing it almost at all this season. I think it would be a travesty if Jokic loses the MVP, and I think he would lose just because he looks like a loaf of white bread.
Steve, you're coming in with so much heart, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to our listeners to point them in the right direction.
Right, I agree. No, Jokic is the MVP. That's not what I care about right now.
And so Embiid, I think Embiid would be the winner if the season ended today. Jokic, I think, has the strongest argument by far of if he was not on this team, then this team would be totally screwed. But with Giannis being at 6-1, he's 0.1 points per game behind Embiid, and Embiid leads the league in points, I believe. He's averaging 11.6 rebounds. He's averaging 6 assists. They're 40-25 for third in the East. Philadelphia is 39-24. And they're coming off of a pretty bad January and February where I think they were like 13-12. So they're coming off of their bad stretch. If they have a really strong 2 or 3 week stretch here as the season winds down and gets to that 1 seed, then I think it's really a really good case for Giannis. And I think that the voters were kind of begrudgingly giving it to Jokic last year. I think the voters would be a little bit more excited to give it to Giannis, where he is now, past the test of winning the title.
The crazy thing is, I'm pretty sure Jokic is better statistically this year than he was last year when he won MVP.
Jokic is better statistically. He's better eye test. He's above average defender this year. I think he's the best offensive player in the NBA. Like I said, he would be my pick for who the MVP is going to be.
Just like taking my heart out of it though, and being playing with my mind here, I do think one thing that is a detriment to Jokic is that he won last year, and I don't think voters will easily give a back-to-back MVP unless you were absolutely 100% the cream of the crop, and it's just so close. I feel like the Embiid narrative of the process and him being the only one left after it and carrying this team for most of the season, I think that might get him extra votes that maybe his stats won't bear out.
And also Denver is the 6th seed right now. At the very best, they could get up to 4. And just traditionally, the award is won by somebody who finishes it with a number 1 or number 2 seed. So I think that's another strike against Jokic, even though it's not his fault that they're the 6th seed. If it wasn't for him, they might be the 15th seed.
Yeah, I do think that if either one of Milwaukee or Philadelphia finished the season on a hot stretch and that team ended up with a 1 or a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, which is perfectly possible because of how tight that playoff seeding shakeout is going to end up being, that could make me think that that certain player deserves recognition over the other guys. How about some of the odds afterwards? In terms of my ranking right now, I think I can have Ja on he would be my number 4 for my candidate. Do the odds match that outlook?
Ja is the 4th favorite at plus 1,000.
Okay, so then the other people I have in my top 11 for MVP candidates are DeMar DeRozan, not in order. I just said order my top 4. DeMar DeRozan, Jason Tatum, Stephen Curry, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Kevin Durant, and either one of the Suns guards. Who has the longest odds of those players?
Jason Tatum.
Yeah, LeBron and Tatum are both at 30-1.
Okay, what needs to happen for Jason Tatum to win the MVP? Average 45 for the rest of the year. The Celtics are the first seed. Does Tatum get the MVP if they're averages 45 and they're the 1 seed?
Yeah, I mean, this week from now until the end of the season, just stretch it out. Celtics keep winning.
Yeah, okay. So it's there. It's in the cards. I don't think anyone is going to crack that top 3, so maybe it's kind of futile to even discuss, but I think there's lots of fun value and players that are going to be moving up and down the back half of that top 10.
Also a correction. I said they're 30-1. All the zeros threw me off. They're 300-1, both Tatum and LeBron.
Yeah.
I do have a question, Shay, for you. I know we dismissed everyone after the top 3, and I agree with that. But if you just want to throw a few bucks for funsies to make a lot of money, just hopefully hit gold, DeMar DeRozan at plus 1,200, do you think he has any shot? If he keeps up this pace and somehow the Bulls, move up the standings a little bit to 1 or 2, does he have any chance at all of making MVP?
I would say no. And I just think that with awards like MVP, or more often than not, the most significant differentiating factor in the award should be are you one of the 6 to 7 best players in the league? And if you're lower down that list, is your season so spectacular that it's overshadowing the players who are higher on that list? So that's why I think it makes sense for players like Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid. They're 3 of the 4 best players in the NBA right now. And then if you want to enter the discussion and be like a legitimate threat, I'm going to need you to be somewhere at least top 10. That's why I think somewhere like Ja, because I think he's now in that conversation. I think I have him as the 9th, 10th, 11th best player, one of those guys there now. I think Tatum is in that same range. Stephen Curry is obviously still a top 6 guy. I think LeBron still has that. We saw that performance that he can still rise himself to that level. So I just give the tiebreaker when I'm discussing what an MVP type player to someone like that versus someone like DeRozan, who albeit is having a preposterous season. He's incredibly efficient from areas of the floor that are foregone for modern style basketball. And he's been incredibly efficient in the clutch. And he's brought a wow factor as a surprise team, and kind of like an extra layer of like shock is added in because of how consensus everyone was so low on that acquisition of DeMar DeRozan, deservedly so at that point. And it's just how far from expectations entering the season to compare to how he's actually playing and how he's carrying the Bulls to being a home court team in the Eastern Conference, and for a good chunk of the year, either a 1 or a 2 seed. He deserves to be on ballots, but I think he has next to no shot to finishing in the top 3. So if you're going to do a long bet, it would need to be something where like Ja continues to be a lunatic. The Grizzlies not only take the 2 seed, they like scratch at the backs of the Suns, and Ja's doing like he's averaging 34 and 12 assists for the end of the season. So it would need to be something. You have to have the stars align for a spectacular player, and their team needs to have spectacular success. So to reiterate, I don't think anyone's breaking that top 3, but if it is, I would pick a long shot player that I think is already a top 10 guy. So I would have to take Ja, Tatum, Steph, or LeBron. I mean, even Luka. Luka's not a crazy candidate. Like any one of those guys, those are more deserving candidates to throw a couple dollars at, because I think the likelihood of one of those winning it, even though it's small, it is higher than I think next to 0 for someone who's just not as significantly talented as a player as DeMar DeRozan is.
If I'm going long, I'm kind of looking at Devin Booker plus 2,200, and maybe there's just a world where he has a really strong finish to the season. The Suns are really far up on best record in the league. They're up 7.5 games for best record in the league. So they're going to finish with the best record. And if he just has a couple of insane weeks with Chris Paul sidelined, then maybe.
I can see that.
You know,
those first 2 games. Yeah, those first 2 games where he was point book, he looked incredible. It's hard. I mean, I have one name per number, and my number 9 is Suns. I don't know. Like, I think Booker's better, but CP3 has been their engine for the season. Let's move on to the next breakdown. Where are we going to jump to the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference? Which one do you have up first?
I've got the East up first because I think it's a little bit more interesting. I'm going to actually go 5 deep on it because I'm a Celtics fan. We've got Brooklyn as favorite at plus 260, Philadelphia second plus 340, Milwaukee plus 350, Miami plus 475, and the Boston Celtics, some may say the best team of 2022, are at plus 950.
950. That's a big drop off from those other guys. So they kind of have that top 4 all kind of lumped together. Not much differentiation between Brooklyn, Philly, Milwaukee, and Miami. I think that those odds all make sense. Brooklyn makes me nervous because I don't know what team they're going to have. Is Ben Simmons going to be on that basketball team? We saw how they can still be a potent offense even against the league's best defense earlier today. Obviously, they came up short in a loss, but once you have creators that are that incredible, that's what succeeds kind of in playoff basketball. So I understand why Kevin Durant and Kyrie have the best odds right now.
And I think there's a little like, so I pulled all these numbers from one of the big sports books. I'm not going to say who because, you know, they're not advertising here. So no free commercials. But But I think something that's going on with this Brooklyn number is that when Vegas sets these lines, they want money to be dispersed out pretty evenly. And there were so many people that loaded up on Brooklyn before the season, before the vaccine mandate, before the Harden stuff, that now Vegas is just like, listen, we have enough money on Brooklyn. If you want to come in, you're going to have to pay a premium for it. And then you're going to have to take on all that risk of the Ben Simmons stuff. And then also, like, for any team looking at injuries, I know that Kyrie hasn't played a lot of games, but the Kyrie injury list is in front of me. I won't read it because that'll be boring, but the Kyrie injury list is long. And Kevin Durant, since 2019-20, has played 72 regular season games. By comparison, Zion has played in, I think, 84, and Joel Embiid has played like twice as many games. And so you're just taking on a lot of risk for the reward to be that low with Brooklyn, I think is a little crazy and also a little bit Vegas influenced.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I agree with the booking of the top four. Since it's all so close, I might want to get a little more bang for my buck. Like, I've been hard on the Celtics for a very long time, but they've been really hot as of late, and they're getting decent odds. I mean, you're getting twice as much in return if you're betting on the Celtics versus the Miami Heat. So, if I'm just looking purely from a gambling perspective to make a few bucks, I might go Celtics. There's really nobody else that excites me because below them, I don't really trust any of the teams. I might throw maybe $10 on the Raptors for the shits and giggles because they could mess around and maybe win a couple series, but other than that, I mean, just for value, I'm not going with the top four. I'll probably go with the Celtics just for getting a few bucks.
The Celtics are the only team to put money on right here. I mean, it's crazy. Those odds are all way too close for teams that aren't. I think those 5 teams are in an elongated tier together as contenders in the Eastern Conference. And I think the fact that they're not all bunched closer together is disrespectful to this recent run that the Boston Celtics have had. I don't think that there's any difference in this 30-game stretch from the Celtics from what we saw in the 30-game stretch at the start of the season from the Warriors, or the 30-game stretch that we saw between the start and what we have now from the Phoenix Suns. This team is just as dominant as those teams were in similar amount of games. They're the best defense in the entire league. They have a scorer who can outshoot Kevin Durant when Kevin Durant's playing well, as we saw today. I think if this team has health, and obviously that's a concern that hasn't been consistent through previous postseasons, but I think if this team is healthy, they have just as good a chance, in my opinion, to make the finals as any of these other rosters. And it's really going to come down to seeding and who gets the matchups that are best suited for them come postseason. If these teams can avoid each other for as long as possible, that's how you become more likely. All 5 of these teams are definitely pushing to play Toronto, and I mean, not that these teams are going to be easy outs because the East is really, really deep this year, but Toronto, Cleveland, and Chicago, these teams are gunning for matchups against those guys. And for the Celtics to have twice as long odds as the worst team there, and for Brooklyn to be 260 and the Celtics to be 950, I don't see how you put money anywhere else than in the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Celtics are giving you value at 9.5 to 1 there. I said my piece on Brooklyn. Philadelphia, it's just I've seen the Doc Rivers face too much. I've seen James Harden in the playoffs too many times. I've seen Embiid huffing and puffing, so I can't take Philly. Miami, I think they've got the strength in numbers that has carried them in the regular season. They have a really good regular season record, but the value of that does decrease in the playoffs when the rotation shrinks down to 8, and it's really down to, do you think you're going to get bubble Bam, or are you going to get the Bam that really got picked apart by Milwaukee in the playoffs last year? It's a little risky to me. I think Milwaukee at 3.5 to 1 or 3.5 to 1. I think that's interesting because, like I said, they're coming off of a tough stretch for January and February. We're 13-12. But we've already seen this past week. They came back. They closed Miami on a 21-6 run, and then they beat Phoenix in Milwaukee, and they've got the swagger of champions. So that one, other than the Celtics, I think Milwaukee at 3.5 to 1, they might be the deserving favorite in my eyes, and you're getting a little bit of value there.
Steve, why are you so obsessed with the Miami Heat, and why are you about to say we should put money on them?
Yeah, if I was betting on any one of the top four, I would go with Miami. They've been legitimately the best team all year. I think they have a 3-game lead on the second place team right now. They've done it mostly with role players all year. They've been missing Kyle Lowry for like 11 games. Bam missed like a month. They were missing Jimmy Butler for 15 plus games. Like Spoelstra in Miami has just done an excellent job. They have role players now that have playing experience and meaningful playing experience. So if they hit an injury down the road, they're fine. They have guys who've been to the finals. I just feel like this is a very strong-minded team that will grind in the playoffs. They've been there before. They can afford injuries. Like, I don't see any significant injuries. The only thing that you can say about them is they don't have that flashy hood ornament. They don't have that Giannis. They don't have that Embiid. But they have 3 dudes that are like legitimately good players that will help you win playoff series.
Yeah, and even entering the season, I thought they were going to be a team that when injuries befell them, their major guys, that they were going to struggle because they didn't have any depth. And what we saw was just surprise performances from players that either literally weren't on a roster last season or that really, really got glossied up for the Heat just based off of their culture and system and ability to grow Max Strus to be just as valuable as Duncan Robinson and Omar Yurtseven to be a reputable backup center who can start and give you 15 and 15. Just complete random production from players that we weren't expecting. But entering the season, I was like, I would be concerned about this team even if they have a crappy regular season because their shortened playoff rotation is Tyler Hero as your 5th best player or 4th best player, and PJ Tucker is your proven small ball 4 to go alongside Bam, who's one of the best playoff defenders we have in basketball. We've seen what Jimmy Butler and Bam can do. I understand it was, albeit in the bubble. We see what they can do. Not that they have a headlining guy, but Jimmy in the past has taken that mantle temporarily. So I think that just you can make a case for any of these teams. The East is really, really good. Like all of these teams are legitimate championship level rosters, in my opinion. And in other years, you stack up any of these 4 or 5 teams against the 1 or 2 best teams in the league in other years. And I think that these teams here might be just as good, if not better. So I think that Miami, because they have the second most fortuitous odds there, you're going to get more bang for your buck there. I think Miami would be, just like you said, the second best chance. What about let's waste $10? Like what's the Atlanta Hawks?
7,000, so 70 to 1.
Sure. About $5. That's just like it's not going to happen, but you know what I mean. It's things could fall into place for them. They have a ceiling that other players don't. Right? They have a ceiling.
Knicks at 1,000 to 1.
1,000. It needs to be way higher. It needs to be way higher.
I got you on the Knicks. Ready?
All right. Let's jump to the West.
Okay, we've got the first place reigning conference champion Phoenix Suns as the favorite at plus 160. Golden State is second, plus 190. Utah is plus 650. And then I just want to double check to make sure I'm right. Yes, Memphis is plus 1,000.
Really?
Disrespectful.
And Denver, who could get interesting here, is at plus 1,500.
Denver's 1,500. What are the Mavericks?
1,800.
Okay.
If you want the Lakers, they're 3,500.
I don't want to put money on that team.
Yeah, no, it seems to not be going well, but you got LeBron AD, go a long way. I think just looking at this one, the immediate cross off for me is Golden State. You're just betting.
Oh, absolutely.
You're betting on the health of the big 3. There's really, plus 190. There's just no value in that where there's so much risk that either Draymond doesn't come back or one of the other guys sustains another injury.
Right now, I feel pretty confident that Phoenix is going to be my representative out of the Western Conference. I think they have the most complete team in the NBA. I'm probably going to be talking about them in every award discussion that we had for the next half hour. for different players for different reasons. And I think that they have one of the 3 best coaches in the league. They've proven that they can succeed at a high level when it matters most. I think Golden State being up there is just because of the allure of the names and because of the fact that Clay is back, more so in stature rather than in reality. He's kind of plateaued, but I mean, he looks good for someone who just came off the injuries that he came off of, but he hasn't returned to his top 25, top 20 player in the league status whatsoever. So I wouldn't think that they're going to be a good bet. That relies a lot on Draymond coming back healthy and them getting something out of Wiseman. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if they were the representative. I think the value is not with Utah. I wouldn't bet a single penny on Utah. but any of those last 4 teams, I would probably try to stay away from LA just because I don't trust them as much. But Memphis, Denver, and Dallas, they all have a player that can win you a series themselves. And for different reasons, more so Memphis than the others, we've seen some real good examples of strong play that could carry into some success in the postseason. So I think any of those, Memphis at 1,000, Denver at 15, and Dallas at 18, I think any of those. I mean, Luka was probably the best player in the entire playoffs last year up until Giannis had 50 in the closer, just based off of that series. He's had back-to-back playoff series against the Los Angeles Clippers with literally the most 2 perfect, possibly sculpted players to defend Luka Doncic in a playoff series, and Kawhi Leonard, who's probably one of the 5 best defenders of all time, and Paul George, who's elite at defending the things that Luka does. And Luka ate them up and was incredible. So I think that attaching your wagon to any of those players is perfectly reasonable. Where do you think the value is, Steve?
This one's way harder than the Eastern Conference picking like a great value. I do like that chunk at the back half of the Nuggets, Mavericks. I do have a question for you guys with the Nuggets because I haven't been following injury reports. So where are we at with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr.?
I believe I saw on Twitter saying that they will return, but it was not like it wasn't large.
They're hoping that they're both going to be able to play. Depending on the week, it fluctuates whether they think MPJ is coming back before Murray. They talk about practice and like pre-games. Michael Porter's workouts have been much more intense, and he's like going close. He's like 80% speed, where Jamal Murray's going kind of like 40% speed. But they're optimistic that they're going to get back at least one of them. So I wouldn't be surprised if it came to that maybe Jamal Murray's coming off the bench for game 1 of a playoff series and Michael Porter's coming off of playing 5 games, like that type of thing. So if they ramp up and they get a good shakeout for an opponent in the first round, they could be terrifying because come second round, if they're catching their stride and they have all 3 of those guys healthy and playing well, that they have the best player in the league in Jokic, or if not the second best player, I don't know. So I think any of those teams are great bets. Just pick what player you like best out of those top guys, and I think it's a good bet. Why you think that purely because of the uncertainty of the injury there, that's where the value lies most?
That's where I would guess. Like if you can get lucky and you get them back maybe a little earlier than you expected, maybe like you're getting great value, because if they're all there, their odds are probably plus 900, 800. It's probably way lower odds or way higher odds for them hitting. So that might be a good place to play, a good team to play some money. I do think that it's just disrespectful with the Grizzlies at plus 1,000. Like they are way better than that. So that's another good.
For them to be that much lower than, never mind Golden State, who they've proven to be on the same par with as of their play of late, but for them to be that much lower than Utah, I mean, what is going on? I understand that when Utah has their top 2 guys, they're still playing like one of the best regular season offenses of all time. But I mean, we've seen that show before.
I think there's something to be said about.
No way I'm betting on Utah.
The way they make lines, like it's not always about who the best team is. It's about the public view. So I think people.
Yeah, but why is Utah getting that respect?
Because they know the names Donovan Mitchell and they know the name Rudy Gobert.
But they know the names and they're not interested in the names. It doesn't make sense to me.
Just with Memphis, like I feel like in this, partially overreaction to the 50 piece, but just like, is there a chance that Memphis is the 2011-12 Oklahoma City Thunder, like that they're on that same path? And it's just like, you got a really great team in Phoenix, but other than that, the West does feel pretty open, and anybody can beat anybody. I tried looking into their splits to see if I could just find out anything interesting, and there wasn't really anything there. It was just that they're very consistent, and I think that's a really good trait to have going into the playoffs. You got the man, like you were saying, Shay. You need your guy. So I think Memphis is really the pick if you're going to be betting, just because Phoenix, if you wait until like the actual series that gets played, like they'll still be pretty close to even odds by the time the Western
Conference. And probably waiting out Phoenix just to get more clarity on Chris Paul's injury, even though I'm confident that he's going to be back in full health. But you don't know.
It might be like perfectly timed. It might really work out for them that Chris Paul is getting this rest and he's going to have fresh legs because we have seen that derail Houston in the past.
What are the teams? I'm trying to think of what the other two teams are. Is there any long shot like we just said Atlanta on the other side? Like, what are the Timberwolves?
Clippers are also 30.
Clippers. I was just going to say, what are the Clippers?
They're also 3,500 with the Lakers.
I like that bet more than the Lakers, I think, just in case one or two of those guys come back.
Well, we know what the Lakers are. You know, like I think that's what also makes the difference between the Lakers and the Nets. Like the Nets, you can actually imagine something going right, but with the Lakers, it's just like this team is really bad. They got to see what's the record. They are 28-35. Like
Yikes.
They're just bad. The Clippers, who haven't had their guys, are 34-31. So, I think at least like with that 3,500 imagination that like, oh, Kawhi and PG come back and they're good to go. But I don't really like betting that way. That's why I don't like the Clippers. I also don't like Denver. I don't think that would work out. And then just like great point about Luka, Shea, that if he started out this season, what he's been doing for the past 20 games, the world would be going crazy. But yeah, Memphis is my pick, and the Timberwolves are 60-1 for a long
60-1. Steve, you feeling lucky with your T-Wolves?
I mean, they have no shot, but they could get into the playoffs and cause an upset in the first round. They're not a bad team.
I would be surprised if that happened. All right, let's blend it over. Put a cap on this conversation. What are the finals odds? NBA champion.
Yeah, finals. You got Phoenix plus 380, Golden State 450, Brooklyn 475, Philadelphia 650, Milwaukee 800.
Miami plus 1,000.
There you go.
Miami is plus 1,000. Which one was 650? Philly
650.
And Brooklyn's 475.
Yeah.
I know you want this one. The Celtics are plus.
I do.
22 or 2,200.
2,200.
2,200 Celtics.
That line is not updated since today when Jason Tatum, if you'll recall, dropped 54 points.
I like Milwaukee at 800.
Yeah.
That seems, I'm trying to tamper my excitement for my hometown team, but I think that just as we spoke before, that I think the Celtics are in a similar tier as the other teams in the Eastern Conference to make the finals. I obviously think that they should be closer than their competitors in the East are. So with Brooklyn being 475, Philly being 650, I like the difference in value, just as I did in the East for the Celtics in the distance in the finals run. I would probably stay away from both Phoenix and Golden State. And I think I'm splitting my money between Milwaukee and the Celtics probably.
Can I split my money? Because you're splitting your money. So I'm going to split my money evenly between the Bucks and the Heat. I feel like those are going to be the two teams playing each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I could see both of them easily, giving the Western Conference team a run for their money in the finals. So I like both those teams. They both have a lot of experience. They both have been there to the finals before. The Bucks obviously won last year, so why not do it again? And the Heat, you heard my praises earlier. I love the Heat. I'm a Heat homer now, so yeah.
Steve, Heat culture. I feel like it's a cop out, but I think I gotta go with the favorite. I like at almost 4-1 with.
Yeah, it's not bad.
The Phoenix, who they've been the best team all season long. They almost won it all last year. If Giannis needed all 50 of those in Game 6, and if it goes back to Phoenix for Game 7, then it's very possible that it might even be likely that they would have won back in Phoenix. So yeah, best team, almost won it last year. I kind of like Phoenix there.
Who's their backup big, by the way, in Phoenix? Do you guys know? Oh, they have JaVale McGee now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they have some help at least. If because last year when 8 went out, they had nothing for the Bucks.
Kaminsky was getting eaten alive.
Yeah, so they have a couple guys to at least fill in if Ayton has issues at least.
Jalen
If
Smith
you're
was a missing person.
Yeah, he's shown some promise on Indiana so far, playing off of Halliburton. If you're feeling crazy, I would lean on the same argument that I had for the Western Conference for the finals. I would put some money on Denver Mavericks. Go crazy with the Lakers if you want to go crazy, because I'm sure their odds are ridiculous. So one of those two teams, if you're just for a lower bet, that's just a complete flyer shot in the dark. Luka summons, I don't know, Larry Bird and is the best player in the league for a 2 month stretch, a month stretch. It's possible, but I think that Phoenix has the favorite, but still with pretty solid odds, or one of those teams that's clearly a strong team that no one would be shocked if they were hoisting the Larry OB at the end of the year, like Milwaukee. That's where my money would be, and I purely would put money in Boston just because 2,200 that's way too low. Those odds are way too long for what we've seen out of them as of late.
I'm with you on the Celtics, man. They have all the ingredients. They have 2 stud players. They play great defense when they have their whole roster together. They're probably the best defensive team in the league. So I don't see why they couldn't win a championship. It's not likely, but at the same time, they absolutely could. And with those odds, 22-1, put $10. What is that, like $220 back? Easy money there.
More than that.
No,
yeah,
it's more.
But that's yeah, I think so. Right? You're making a lot more.
22-1.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Okay.
Math's hard. Okay,
Yeah.
Speaking of defense, let's jump to the next award here. Please share with us the top 3 odds for Defensive Player of the Year.
All right, and you can't burst out when I say this, but the favorite at -160 is Rudy Gobert. Second is Giannis.
-160?
Yes. Yes. Second is Giannis at +425, and third, which recently updated, is Bam at +700.
How many
and just like to point out the absurdity of like they just hope you're not paying attention type of rankings is that Draymond is 5th at +1200, and he hasn't played in like 2 months.
How many more games has Gobert played than Draymond? I feel like they've played the same amount of games.
We've just established that this is not a math show.
Yes. I'm pretty sure that they've played similar amount of games. Utah's defense, where in the past their players have played well in a scheme and covered from not mistakes, but been able to cover in ways that they haven't this year, makes Gobert's contributions on that end of the floor so much more stark. I think it's pretty obvious that he's one of the 5 best defenders in the league. It's just how valuable do you think his defensive style is, and how much value has he provided in the games that he's played, because he's only played, what do you have it, 45 is my guess?
It's 48 and Draymond's at 34.
Okay, so it's split up recently just because Draymond's been missing time and Rudy's come back. But I think that what I've seen from Draymond this year has been just as impressive, if not more impressive, than Rudy Gobert defensively. I think Draymond Green is a better defender than Rudy Gobert. I don't think I have either one of them winning it. I like Giannis. I think he's my Defensive Player of the Year pick right now. And then after that, it's all players that like I don't think are going to win. But like my list, I think like Evan Mobley. What's Evan Mobley's odds?
I believe it's 4,000.
Yeah,
it's plus 4,000.
Because he's in my top 5. Like I think he's been undoubtedly one of the 5 best, 10 best, 6 best defenders in the league this year. Yeah, he's crazy versatile and is doing things. What's Marcus Smart and Robert Williams odds?
Marcus Smart's 200-1. Robert Williams is plus 1,600. So Smart is way out there.
I mean, that's probably my top 5 is probably Giannis, Draymond, Mobley. Pick who you think is more
What order?
crucial to the Celtics defense with Smart and Bo, and then Gobert is probably in there. But you got to give some credit. What's Mikal Bridges odds?
Mikal Bridges is plus 1,800.
Okay. Bam's really getting a good look here for someone who's missed time and in the beginning of the year wasn't as nice. Okay, last question on my, because I said I have 9 names for my could have some credit. What is Jaren Jackson Jr.'s odds?
Plus 850. So he is the number 4.
I was going to say he's up there, huh? That's surprising.
Yeah.
So Jaren Jackson Jr. If you could educate me on this, I know he does a great job. He gets a lot of blocks, but is he more of a stat guy or an actual like defensive menace out there? Is he just a guy who gets like numbers, or is he actually like making an intangible impact?
I would say it's close, and up until recently, it's been more so you're going to show out incredible in the box score because he's got such active hands with one of the longest wingspans in the league that as a big who's not crazy fleet of foot, but he can move well laterally for a guy of his size. He just swallows up the ball. So he's getting lots of action, lots of deflections, lots of blocks at the rim, lots of blocks on the perimeter, and he's always active in the passing lanes. I think that him paired with Steven Adams has unlocked him to be effective as a defender who roams, as well as be imposing in other ways that he wasn't previous in his career. And I think he's settled down. One of his big issues in players that are kind of this similar style of active, long arms, crazy athlete type player, even though he's kind of more of a snaking athlete than someone like an explosive athlete. But these guys that they come into the league and they have such awesome tools, think like Mitchell Robinson or Robert Williams, and you can see the defensive potential there. It's not truly until they can tamper down doing things like jumping for up fakes or really getting caught on an island where they don't know what's going on or losing track of the playoff ball, what it is. We've seen Robert Williams itch those parts of his game out, but we're seeing from Jaren Jackson too, where unfortunately someone like Mitchell Robinson has probably reverted for worse habits. But Jaren Jackson Jr., now that he's fouling less, he's playing more minutes at the 5 when he gets the chance without Steven Adams. I think you say he was 4th. I probably wouldn't put any money on him, but he's in my top 10. I think he's, so it's tough. This is tough. I think
with defensive player of the year, this is the point where we get to we're really betting on how people are going to vote, and you really got to take like your own opinion out of it. So I understand how Gobert gets to the minus 160 as the favorite because the award is so dynastic. If you just look at the history, there's just a lot of big men who win like 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5. I kind of love Giannis at plus 425. This might be my favorite bet of everything we go over because there's going to be a block of voters who vote for Giannis for MVP, but know Giannis might not win it. So they also want to make sure they vote for Giannis for Defensive Player of the Year. There's also going to be a block of voters who it really pained them to not vote for Giannis for MVP because he had such a great season and then say, hey, great, I couldn't make you my MVP, but I'm going to reward you with Defensive Player of the Year vote. Kind of similar to KG 07-08, where he was definitely a worthy MVP candidate. Kobe and Chris Paul were right there with him, and Kobe ended up winning it, and KG deservedly won Defensive Player of the Year. So I can see that happening with Giannis, and at plus 425, those are pretty good odds.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think if I had to put money, I would go with Giannis because it's a solid, you're getting almost 4-1 odds. I just want to make a quick point about their team as a whole, the Bucks and Jazz. Both of their defensive ratings is like middle of the pack. I know it's an individual award, but it just kind of shows you that, I don't know, they might not be making the impact that you would think. And then on the flip side, we talked about Jaren Jackson Jr., Bam Adebayo, and some of the Celtics. I mean, those teams are some of the top defenses in the league. The Celtics are 2nd, the Heat 5th, and then the Grizzlies 8th. So just some.
I think that Giannis, his responsibilities this year have taken an increase from when he won the Defensive Player of the Year a couple of years back. Without having Brook Lopez there, he's had a lot more responsibility as a low post defender, but also his his roaming, crazy free safety self. He's been just as potent on the perimeter, and in transition, he's probably become the best transition defender in the entire NBA. So he's my pick for Defensive Player of the Year. So I'm with you guys. I think just purely based on the number, he would probably be getting the large share of my money for a bet on Defensive Player of the Year. I think Draymond would probably be my second. Just if he came back in time, I think his case kind of writes itself. The Warriors show again, maybe they settle their ship, that they've kind of been struggling recently. Maybe his return, they become, again, the best defense in the league, which they were when he was on the court. So I think that his odds being so long makes sense. And then if you want to, it's almost like it's not worth throwing a crazy long shot, because it's an award that, even though I think it shouldn't be, it's an award that, as we touched on, it's kind of tied to the legacy of your own individual performance in the award in years past. So I think Giannis, being a previous winner, being commonly accepted as one of the 5 best defenders in the league, I think he's got an awesome case. But I really despise the lack of discussion that both Marcus Smart and Robert Williams are getting. I think these guys have both been legitimate top 5-10 defenders in the NBA this season. Robert Williams is a real defensive playmaker, and he's doing things that very few players in the NBA can do. And I just really love that. I mean, if I had a 10th name here, I would think about it being Herb Jones, who I actually am going to have on my all NBA defensive second team. And just to have 2 rookies, just deserving just their name being said in a discussion, in Evan Mobley and lesser so with Herb Jones, I think that deserves a lot of attention, to be a reflection of how strong this rookie class is. We're probably going to talk about them soon for who's going to be our choices and what looks best for Rookie of the Year. But I think just giving some attention to what Evan Mobley has done in his rookie year. He slowed down a bit when he came back from his injury, but in the last handful of games, he's looked really, really good. So he's probably going to be a winner maybe a couple times in his career, and will likely be a top 5 candidate moving forward. So we're on the same page with Giannis winning there. Do you have any closing thoughts before we jump to what's next on your list? Coach of the Year?
Yeah, Coach of the Year. And this is the section of the show where we get into some pretty heavy favorites.
Okay.
Monty Williams is a heavy favorite at -350. Next is JB Bickerstaff at +350. Spo after that +650. Taylor Jenkins also +650. Billy Donovan +1200. And friend of the network, Mark Dagnall, is at 1,000 to 1.
Wow,
Let me just you know where I'm going with this one.
Go.
It's obvious. Obvious.
Oh, heat culture.
Heat culture. I'm bringing the culture back. I think if you look at these guys, I understand Monty Williams, they are the best team in Phoenix, right, this year. And I understand until recently, though, they've had pretty much their entire squad. I mean, you have Chris Paul go out, I don't know what, after the All-Star game, he's been out since then. He'll probably miss most of the rest of the regular season. But, you see Spo on the flip side, he's also first in his conference, and he's gone through so much more as far as what he's had to do to keep the ship right. He's lost his top 3 players for chunks of the season. He's doing it with guys that's been cut from other teams. I think Max Strus was a Celtic at one point. If I'm correct? Yeah. So he's doing it with rejects from all over the league. And he was named recently earlier in the year a top 15 coach of all time, according to the NBA. How can you be a top 15 coach and never get Coach of the Year? I think they have to correct this mistake. Give him Coach of the Year because he deserves it. He's been recognized as one of the best of all time, and kind of solidify his legacy. So I think he gets it. I do think maybe Monty Williams, the odds are way too in his favor. So if you want to get some bang for your buck, why not throw some money towards Spo?
Steve, I think you sold me. I was ready to come in and say, maybe Billy Donovan is the one that you want to take, because if the Bulls close strong, then they're the big surprise team. But no, you sold me onto Spo, and yeah, there's just no point in taking Monty Williams at -350, so it's not really worth talking about.
I think Eric Spoelstra is commonly accepted as the best coach in the NBA right now. I think across anyone who has valid opinions about the league, it's like pretty commonplace that he's got the best chemistry building. He's got the best ATOs. He's got the best defensive schemes. He's got the best ability to adjust in playoff games. He's got a proven resume of success. since his LeBron years of improvement every single year, to the point where in the past 4 or 5 years, he's pretty firmly in the discussion as one of the better coaches. And I think this year is the clear distinction point where he's the best coach in the league. I think because of everything that Steve touched on and what a mishmash of a roster they've been succeeding with down in Miami, I think he's a clear choice. And because of the value you're getting there, that's a clear bet. I do think that there's a ton of names that deserve some attention in this. There's so many teams that are overperforming expectations. There's so many rosters that are fitting together in ways that we weren't expecting. My top 5 was Spo. Monty Williams, I did have 2. He's obviously doing a fantastic job with the Phoenix Suns. He's one of the better coaches in the league. Taylor Jenkins in Memphis. We've seen what he's done for a connective young roster, being able to be one of the surprise teams. I think he deserves some recognitions. What was his line? Jenkins.
650.
650 is the same as Spo.
Yeah, I would stay away from it. Bickerstaff, I have 4 purely because the Cavs are awesome. I wouldn't put money on it. And then I think Ty Lue deserves some credit. We spoke briefly on how incredible the Los Angeles Clippers have been for similar reasons as the Miami Heat in succeeding without their top guys, being a kind of an island of misfit toys and achieving at a high level. And then I just want to give like one word things like Steve Kerr, obviously the Warriors, we know what they have. Finch up in Minnesota, I think he's actually done a really, really strong job. I've been impressed by his coaching chops. I wasn't sure if he was going to have it as a new guy. We've seen some good thing from him. Biddy spoke on Billy Donovan. And then my final 3 names, in no specific order, I just think that all these people have cases. Nick Nurse with his selection of players coming off of the awfulness of what they had to deal with when living down in Tampa. I think they've been an awesome surprise team. Michael Malone, we talked about how much credit Nikola Jokic should get for leading this team to being a clear playoff roster despite having no other top 100 player maybe. And then I really want to give apologies and a lot of credit to Jason Kidd. He's been one of the better defensive coaches in the league this year. We're seeing motivated basketball from both the Dallas Mavericks as a whole, but definitely from Luka Doncic. Luka talks about that connection that Kidd has built from the start. And I think we're seeing from Kidd is a coach who's young in his game in terms of his tenure as a guy who has head coaching experience under his belt. And he's improving off the clear missteps that he's had before in his career. But long shot bet probably would be Ty Lue or Kidd. I'm assuming those are both 3,000.
Ty Lue is plus 10,000 because that's 100 to 1. Jason Kidd is plus 25,000. So
yeah, so like sure, throw a dollar that way. I think Spo is the obvious choice.
All right, well, let's move on to one that I even think we need to really talk about. 6th man of the year, Tyler Hero is the favorite at minus 10,000. He leads the league in bench scoring. His team is very successful. If he stopped playing today, he would still win the award. I don't think we really need to dive in any deeper. So I'll pause there, though, Seamus.
I want to give some love to 2 players who I don't think are going to win it, but to Kevin Love and to Cam Johnson, both very reputable 6-man candidates succeeding on strong teams. I do think it's obvious that Hero gets it, but I wanted to give some love, especially since Cam Johnson had a huge game, 8 threes and 38 points a couple nights back. But yeah, Hero's the obvious choice here.
I don't see Cam Johnson in the betting odds. You know what's funny? Actually, I say him now. You know Cam Johnson has the same betting odds as Dennis Schroeder?
For 6-man?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there you go. Throw your dollar on Cam Johnson. He's good. Like, I think he's really good, and maybe Hero sits out or goes in a funk or gets injured or hangs out with Jack Harlow. I don't know. All right, next award.
All right. Well, I mean, we can't not do this with Seamus. Rookie of the year, Evan Mobley, runaway favorite at minus 650. Scottie Barnes.
650? 650?
Scottie Barnes plus 500. Cade Cunningham, I think you've heard of him, plus 600. Giddy plus 1,800.
650.
Minus 650. Would you put a bet on Scottie Barnes? Just 5 to 1. Maybe Toronto finishes it really strong.
I think both Scottie and Cade have been better than Mobley since the calendar turned. Mobley obviously had a way stronger start and was the engine of the surprise team early in the year. I think that I'm very obviously I'm going to say you can bet on Cade. There's plenty of paths to I'm seeing him overtaking Evan Mobley by year's end. Scottie Barnes, he's got a good scenario going for him right now with Van Fleet out for a short period of time. We talked previously how Van Fleet was the only point guard on the roster, and when Van Fleet was out, that responsibility was going to either Pascal and Scottie. Now it's mostly Scottie. He starts the game as their point guard. He's their primary initiator, so a higher usage for him could help. I think I split up some money between Scottie and Cade because I think both of those guys have pathways to winning this award, even if Mobley has it. It's almost like they locked in Mobley as a guy who's going to win the award in December. And what we've seen from the other guys recently, I think that discussion should be opened back up. And I think that these guys should all be closer to kind of neck and neck. So that difference is shocking. I figured Mobley was going to be the favorite, but I didn't realize it was going to be this overwhelming. Yeah, obviously I'm going to back Cade.
Yeah, I think the voters want to reward either Mobley or Barnes for being on a good team. So I do have to not bet on Cade, but I do still love him, Seamus. Sorry, don't get mad.
That's fine. It's no disrespect. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this class is incredible. I think Cade's going to be one of the better players ever, and it wouldn't be crazy if Evan Mobley won Rookie of the Year in his rookie year.
So yeah, Barnes plus 500, kind of interesting, and then obviously Mobley, can't touch that.
Do you guys like Josh Giddey at all at plus 1,800 or no? Not even worth the.
I don't think he's gonna win. So I think, but like, it's interesting. He's put up some really big nights, but
did he have back-to-back triple doubles, or was it just back-to-back triple doubles? Was it 3 triple doubles in a row, or was it just 2?
I don't recall, but I can't see Giddey winning over Cade. Like, if they're gonna choose somebody from the bad team, then it's gonna be Cade.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mobley will win the award, but like at minus 650, I don't like to bet on minus 650. It's just not.
That's crazy.
So I think
that's ridiculous.
I think Biddy's outlined the scenario perfectly where just because Cade's on such a bad team, and I agree, like he's a very good player, Seamus, but based on the situation, they probably would lean Scottie Barnes if someone else were to win it. So, if you want a little value, why not throw a few bucks Scottie Barnes' way? I don't think he's going to win it, but again, at plus 650, why the hell are you going to bet on Mobley?
I don't know, but
minus 650, sorry.
That's a good segue to our final award, because apparently people were betting on a minus 650 bet, because earlier in the week, Ja Morant was at minus 650, and then he scored 50 points in a game. And now Ja Morant is the favorite for most improved at minus 1,400. I'm surprised it's such a runaway favorite on this award that doesn't have that has the most ambiguous definition to it.
I feel like he's too good already to be most improved, but he has.
Yeah, he was awesome. I mean, the leap that he took. It's interesting when you look back across this award over the years, trying to get some glean of what a pattern could be for what the criteria is. It's often obviously a jump from either like okay to really good, or from good to fantastic. And we've seen examples of both. Obviously, Ja is the good to fantastic example, where last year he was, I don't know, one of the 20 to 30 best players in the league, and now he's, for me, clearly a top 11 guy. That's a legitimate jump. That's a more important jump than the jump from 70 to 30 or whatever it is when like CJ McCollum won the award, or Jimmy Butler back when he won the award. So I think I understand, but I agree. It's surprising because you get such random things. Who are the other people in the top 5 for us?
Miles Bridges plus 900, Darius Garland plus 1,500, DeJounte Murray plus 1,600, and Anthony Simons plus 3,500.
Yeah, maybe
I like this one at plus 8,000, but I don't think it's really a shot. It's Desmond Bane. He's been phenomenal this year.
Yeah, he's slowed down as of late. His shot hasn't been following as nice, and obviously the story of Memphis is his teammate for this award as well. I almost feel like it's Biddy spoke on it earlier, where people, when they vote, if they don't put Giannis 1 or 2 for MVP, maybe they'll pick him for Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe the same thing if people want to feel better about leaving Ja off the 4th or 5th spot in MVP in favor of, I don't know, DeMar DeRozan and Steph. Maybe this is where they reward him a similar amount of credit. Did he make an All-Star team last year? He was an All-Star last year, right?
Ja?
This was, yeah. I forget.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up when you guys keep chatting about it.
Well,
Because those other guys, those other guards that you mentioned in the top 5, that they were first-time All-Stars. That's elite. That's like a pretty concrete way to examine their growth. The formerly lower tier starter, currently All-Star caliber player. So maybe just some longer money on a Darius Garland.
Yeah, I think Garland is like an interesting pick for just not knowing what the definition of the award is. They're just knowing that there are voters out there who are going to automatically disqualify Ja makes it interesting. Yes, Steve.
To clarify, I'm sorry, Biddy, to steamroll you. Just to add some clarity to your question, but Seamus, this was his first All-Star selection this year, so he was not.
So it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, he went from no All-Star to All-Star starter. So I mean, maybe he improved more than the other players. I don't think Ja's a bad selection.
So did Anthony Wiggins. So
Anthony Wiggins, yes, I agree.
Wait, can I get the opinion of an Orlando Magic fan?
Oh, sure. Yes. Who's improved?
We got Mo Bamba at 500 to 1, Steve.
Has he improved that much?
Good God. No, he's been awful this year. He had a great start, and he's just been moping and sad for the past like 20, 30 games. He's not good, but what we're going to do. We're going to be a sucker and give him the big contract.
Okay, and Rob Williams is 400 to 1. So
I was just going to say, what's Rob's odds?
Yeah, 400 to 1. He's pretty good. He's barely outdoing Bamba.
I mean, maybe if this stretch continues and Rob gets some actual legitimate Defensive Player of the Year buzz, which I think he deserves, maybe if he's just in headlines more for the team's success and for what he's doing and what he's responsible for, maybe he can creep into this discussion. I do think to put more credence behind Darius Garland. And speaking on the Cavaliers,
I just placed a $5 bet on Rob.
Good bet. That's a good bet. Speaking on what like Garland is to the Cavaliers and how to project forward the potential success rather of Cleveland in the playoffs. We've seen this year, if you cut the head off of the snake of this Cavs offense and Darius Garland is either not there or he's being housed by an awesome defender, the Cavaliers offense goes to crap. So for any success that they're going to have, we just saw him have one of the better passing games of this season. He was pulling out all the tricks in that game as an interior playmaker, someone who knifes to the center of the defense and then has eyes everywhere. It looks like he has like implanted vision goggles and in the floor so he can see what angles to do drop-offs and lobs to his big man. I could see him now that he's back and he's healthy. Maybe the Cavaliers don't dip and maybe they stay in home court range and maybe Garland is a more – because the growth from Garland is much more like just for number of spots. Like if you're saying, okay, Ja was number 26 in the league and now he's number 10, that's a 16 spot jump. Like Garland was like 112, and then like at the last month of the year last year, you're like, maybe this guy's actually 80. So whatever, he's around there, and now he's 32. That's somewhere between a 50 and a 65 jump spot. So I don't know what the award means. That's kind of what it boils down to. Is it most improved in terms of the biggest value gained in your game, or is it most improved in terms of before you were crap? I don't know. I think Garland is a good bet. I think Bo is a good bet. I wouldn't bet because of how crazy of a favorite Ja is, even if I won't be surprised when he wins the award.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's it on awards.
I love it. Steve, can I have some Fultz thoughts? I haven't watched him play. He's one of my favorite prospects in the league. I haven't seen his games yet. Only highlights. Can I have a brief review of Markelle Fultz before we depart?
Yeah, I've watched a few of the games with him playing so far. Obviously, they're putting him on a minute restriction. He's playing like 13 to 18 minutes a game, but he looks on the court just about the same as he did before he got the ACL tear. Like, I haven't noticed a lot of lack of explosiveness. I'm sure that he is kind of hampered with the injury. He's not as explosive, but his game was never like, I'm going to be super fast, like blow by. He was more of like, I'll be physical. I'll post up the smaller guard. And he's doing that. He hit a couple of mid-range floaters in the game earlier. And the thing that I was most impressed is that he's always been a really smart player with great vision on the court, and that he's been off the court for like almost a year, and it hasn't gone away. Like, he's making the passes, he can see the floor still. And if I was Cole Anthony, I would be a little nervous right now.
Yeah, Fultz is better than Cole. As soon as he gets healthy enough to be playing heavier minutes, he's going to take that role. I love Fultz's outlook as a defender, point of attack guy. He's big. He's got legitimate size, and he's always had better passing chops than he was given credit for. I watched some highlights. It does seem like he's going to have some type of hitch in his long distance shot for the entirety of his career. But he has the ability to impact the game in a variety of ways, even if he isn't a 3-point shooter.
He's a guy who improves the players around him. So, like,
definitely
having him on the court is going to make everyone better. And then just really quick, Jonathan Isaac, what are you doing, man? Like, are you playing basketball again?
I don't know if he cares about basketball, which is sad because I love watching him play. He's probably one of the 10 more exciting defenders in the league, but he might care more about hanging out with some weird politic people
on Fox News.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. With that said, let's get out of here. Place your bets, waste your money, win some dough, hopefully, and hopefully we're responsible. Thank you, listeners, for joining us. Please rate, review, subscribe, do everything you're supposed to do for podcast. Biddies, Steve, until next time, toodaloo.
Happy birthday, Shaq.